looked. His arms were in the legs of his baby clothes. Jenny called my Aunt Anita. She also lived in Florida, but in a different town. "Please, can you look after John and Patrick?" she said. 2 days later, Aunt Anita arrived. She did the housework and everything at home was fine again. When Jenny came home, she had to stay in bed all day. This was a very difficult time for her. She couldn't cook or go for a walk. Worst of all, she couldn't hold Patrick. Marley brought his playthings into the bedroom and lay on the floor next to Jenny. He stayed there day and night. Aunt Anita had to go home to her husband, so I had to look after the house again. Then one day, when the doctor visited Jenny, he said, "You can get up now. The baby is bigger." Jenny was very happy. She got up and played with Patrick and Marley. She started to do the housework. The next day, we went to a Greek restaurant for lunch. But suddenly, the baby started to come. So I took Jenny to the hospital. Then everything happened very quickly. 1 hour later, I held my beautiful new son in my arms. Jenny and I had 2 sons now, Patrick and Connor. One was 17 months old, and one was a baby. We were very happy with our sons, but we were tired all the time. The babies woke us every night. We couldn't sleep for more than 2 hours. Connor had problems with Jenny's milk. After he drank, he was sick. So Jenny was very sad. "What's wrong with me?" she said. "Connor doesn't like my milk. Maybe I'm not a good mom." She started to get angry quickly. She didn't get angry with Patrick and Connor, but she was often angry with Marley and me. Marley could do nothing right. I bought a plant and planted it in the yard. The next day, Marley pulled it out and ate it. Then he broke a door in the house. He went crazy when there was a thunderstorm. One day when I got home from work, I found Marley with Jenny. Jenny was very, very angry. "Why do you break everything?" she shouted. "You're a very bad dog." Marley stood with his head down, and she hit him again and again. I went and grabbed Jenny's arms. "Hey, hey, hey!" I shouted. "Stop! Stop!" I looked into Jenny's face, but the look in her eyes was new to me. Her face was the face of a stranger. "Get him out of here," she said. "Get him out of here now." I opened the front door and Marley ran outside. When I turned back for his leash, Jenny said, "You have to find Marley a new home." She couldn't mean it. She loved this dog. I walked out of the door. Marley ran and jumped around. He wasn't hurt. I took Marley into the street and said, "Sit." He sat. I put his chain over his head with the leash. Then I took him for a very long walk. When we got home, Marley was very tired. I took off Marley's leash and he ran to his bowl. The water went everywhere on the floor. I cleaned it. Jenny sat in a chair with Patrick and Connor. When I walked past her, she said quietly, "I want that dog to leave." I felt very sad. Marley was my friend, and I loved him. I didn't want to find a new home for him. But I also had a wife and 2 small children. I had to think about them. I talked to my friends and neighbors about Marley. "Do you want a Labrador?" I asked, but nobody did. I looked in the newspapers. They were full of ads from people with dogs, and a lot of the ads were for Labradors. These people paid a lot of money for their dogs, I thought, but now they're looking for new homes for them. Maybe Labradors are too difficult, too big and strong. Marley wasn't an easy dog. He wasn't obedient, and he broke things. But we brought him to our home when he was a puppy. He loved us, and we loved him. He was our dog. I took Marley back to the obedience class. A different teacher was there now. This time things went better. I said sit, and Marley sat. I put the chain around his neck, and he walked quietly next to me. I said stay, and he stayed. I walked away from him, but he didn't move. Then I turned and said, come. Marley ran quickly to me. Good boy, Marley, I said. Good boy. At the end of the 8 weeks, the teacher gave me a paper. It said, Marley did well in the obedience class. I was very happy. On the way home, I sang. After this, a wonderful thing happened. Jenny got better. She stopped being sad and was strong and happy. She was a good mother to Patrick and Connor, and she was kind to Marley again. She danced around the room with him. Sometimes at night, when he was quiet, she lay on the floor with him, her head on his neck. Jenny's here with us again, I thought. That's great. Chapter 6. Marley Makes a Movie. Jenny's friend Colleen worked for a film company. One day, Colleen called Jenny. My company is making a film about a family in Florida, she said. They want pictures of a family home. Can I come and take some pictures of your house? Colleen came and took photos of our home and the children, and of Marley too. She showed them to her boss, Bob Goss. Some days later, Jenny called me at work. Bob Goss is making a movie about a family with a dog, she said excitedly. So he's looking for a dog, a big family dog. He saw Colleen's photos and he's interested in Marley. Really? I said. You mean Marley? Our Marley? The next day, Colleen came to our house and took Marley to her boss. 2 hours later, she brought him back again. Marley was great, she said. Everybody loved him. Some days later, the company started filming. Bring Marley to the Gulfstream Hotel at 9 o'clock, Bob Goss told us. We put the children and Marley into the car and drove to the hotel. A lot of people stood outside. The police were there too. One of the policemen looked inside the car. He saw Jenny, 2 small children, and a large dog. You can't come this way, he said. You have to turn back. But we're with the film company, I said. Our dog is in the movie. Really? The police officer said. Then he looked at a paper in his hand. You have the dog? Marley's name was on the paper. I have the dog, I said. Marley the dog. Oh, said the policeman. He turned to another policeman and shouted, He has the dog! Marley the dog! Then he turned to us again. You can come in, he said. I felt very important. Marley was famous. The cameraman started to film Marley, but Marley wasn't obedient. He ran and jumped. He chewed through his leash. Cut, 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 shouted Bob Goss. At the end of the day, we took Marley home. Marley, I said sadly, you're not going to be famous. But the next day, the film company called again. Please bring Marley back here, they said. When we got back to the hotel, Bob Goss said, "On film, Marley was great." Marley had a very good time with the people in the film company. Everybody played with him and petted him. After 4 days, the cameraman stopped filming. "Call us after 8 months," said Bob Goss. "The movie will be ready then." After 8 months, we called the company. The name of the movie was The Last Home Run, but we couldn't learn anything about it. I called the company again and again. 2 years later, I was in a store and there were a lot of movies on the shelves. Suddenly, I saw The Last Home Run, Marley's movie. I bought it and took it home. "Come and watch this," I shouted to Jenny and the children. We saw Marley in the movie. He was only there for 2 minutes, but it was very exciting. We all laughed and cried. "We're famous!" shouted Patrick. Marley's name came at the end of the film. In big letters, it said, "Marley the dog." Sometime later, we said goodbye to our home in West Palm Beach. The place got more and more dangerous, and our house was too small for 2 children and a large dog. So we moved to a bigger house in another city, Boca Raton. A lot of rich people lived in Boca Raton. They had expensive cars, big houses, and beautiful clothes. There were many good things about our new house. Near the house was a small park, but best of all, it had a pool. We all loved the pool, but Marley loved it most. He jumped in with me and climbed on me. But there was a problem with the garage in our new house. It had no windows, and it got very hot in summer, so we couldn't put Marley in it when there was a thunderstorm. I took Patrick and Connor to the pet store, and we bought a strong cage for Marley. We put it next to the washing machine. I put some food in the cage. "Come here, Marley," I called. Marley went inside, and I closed the door of the cage after him. He lay down on the floor and chewed his food happily. "This is going to be your new home when we're away," I said. That evening, we went out for dinner. Before we left, I opened the door of the cage. Marley walked inside, and I closed the door. "Be a good boy, Marley," I said. We had dinner in a restaurant, then we went for a walk. "This is great," said Jenny. "We can forget about Marley. We know he's fine in the cage." She smiled happily. We went home and walked to the front door. I looked at the window next to it. Something was there, in the window. Something black and wet. It was Marley's nose. "What's that?" I said. "How could... Marley?" When I opened the front door, Marley ran to us happily. Everything in the house was fine. Then we looked at the cage. The door was open. "But how did Marley get out?" asked Jenny. "He opened the door from inside," I said. "He's smart, and he's very strong." Day after day, when we left the house, we put Marley into the cage. When we came home, sometimes he was there. Sometimes he was at the window. We tried to make the cage stronger, but Marley was stronger than the cage. When he wanted to get out, he pushed the door open. Chapter 7. The World's Worst Dog. Many people in Boca Raton had dogs, but their dogs were very different from Marley. Most of these dogs were very, very small. Rich women carried them in their handbags and took them into expensive stores and in their fast cars. Marley wanted very much to be friends with these small dogs, but the dogs didn't want to be friends with Marley. The weather in Boca Raton was very good, so lots of restaurants had tables and chairs outside. Customers brought their dogs with them to the restaurants. People ate their food or drank coffee, and their dogs lay quietly on the ground. One Sunday afternoon, we went out for lunch. We parked our car and walked up and down the street. Many other people were out with their dogs too. Marley walked next to me on his leash. We found a restaurant and sat down outside. I put Marley's leash around one of the legs of the strong, heavy table. The waiter came and we asked for some drinks. Then Jenny held up her glass happily. "To a beautiful day with my beautiful family," she said. Suddenly, our table started to move. It moved quickly between the other tables and the other customers. "What's happening?" I thought. Then I saw a small white dog across the street. "Marley's going to that dog," I shouted. "We have to stop him." We jumped up and ran after Marley and the table. "Sorry, sorry, sorry," we shouted to the other customers. I ran and grabbed the table. Jenny grabbed it too. We held it and it stopped moving. I turned around and saw the faces of the other customers. Everybody looked at us with their mouths open. We carried the table back to its place, and a waiter came. "I'll get some more drinks for you," he said. "No," said Jenny. "We'll pay for our drinks and leave." Jenny and I had another baby. This time it was a girl, and we named her Colleen. When Colleen was 2 months old, I had my 40th birthday. I wanted to do something exciting on my birthday, but it was a very quiet day. When I arrived home from work, Jenny was tired. By 8:30, all 3 children were asleep, and Jenny was too. I felt a little sad. I took a drink outside. I sat and looked at the ocean. Marley lay on the ground next to me. I thought about my life. Then I thought about Marley. He wasn't a puppy now. He was 6 years old. But he loved life, and he was very happy. "Marley," I said, "it's only you and me tonight." I held up my glass. "We're not young, but we're having a good time." Some days later, my friend Jim called me. "Let's go out for a drink on Saturday," he said. Jim came for me at 6 o'clock, and we went out to a bar. We talked and laughed. Then the barman called out, "Is John Grogan here? There's a phone call for John Grogan." It was Jenny. "The baby's crying," she said. "Can you come and help me?" "I'll take you home," Jim said. When we turned into my street, I saw a lot of cars. "Somebody's having a party," I said. Jim stopped the car outside my house, and I invited him inside. Then, suddenly, the front door opened. Jenny stood there with Colleen in her arms. She had a big smile on her face. I looked into the yard. There were lots of people around the pool. My friends and neighbors. "Happy birthday, John!" they shouted. I wanted to take Marley to the beach. You couldn't take pets onto most beaches in South Florida, but one small beach was different. Everybody called it Dog Beach. On Dog Beach, dogs could run freely. They didn't have to be on a leash. One morning in June, I took Marley to Dog Beach. There were lots of people with dogs, but the dogs were on leashes. "What happened?" I asked a man. "The police came," the man said. "We have to use a leash." So I walked Marley on his leash, but I felt sorry for him. After our walk, I gave Marley a bowl of water.